My name's Todd Van Erden. I'm an architect evangelist with Microsoft. I'm here at the Betty Crocker Labs with
Ben Roy. I'm an architect on the internet team.
So Ben, I was interviewing with some other folks here, and we were talking about this very cool app that you folks have built. Heavy services-based application, killer architecture, by the way. One of the questions that came up in an earlier conversation was, so what was the development cycle like for this application? I mean, not from necessarily the UI perspective, but from the services perspective. How long did it take? Was it an arduous journey, or was it pretty straightforward?
I would say a little bit of both. So the team that was actually building the core services to support this application were running a Scrum development process. So I think the core development was about two sprints, which is about 2 months for them. There may have been some work that happened a little before or a little bit after, but most of the development for these particular services happened in about a 2 to 3 month time period.
Excellent. So, so people who aren't necessarily familiar with Scrum, what kind of design artifacts are produced as part of a Scrum process?
Well, it kind of depends on the team. For our team, we try to capture design diagrams and stuff like that when we're going through the early phase of the design. And then usually some documentation for the people who are going to be using it, because the product from this was all services. So some documentation around what the services are, how they behave, and how people should call them and interact with them.
So did you use any of the Visual Studio tooling for some of this kind of activity?
Not a whole lot. We use Visio for some of the like the diagrams and stuff like that. We do use TFS for tracking all the tasks and for the actual Scrum process. But we don't use any of the modeling tools or anything.
Not the modeling tools. So how did you approach testing, given the fact that this could be a significantly large application, lots of people invoking the services, God willing? What was the philosophy? How are you doing that?
Well, we've got a QA lead on the team. So we built a test application and a web application that would exercise the services, and then we had our QA team member going through specific use cases to validate that what the end application would be doing worked within the services. It was a little bit of guesswork because we actually didn't have the final comps for what the application was going to look like.
Right.
So we were sort of guessing on here's what we think the flows will be, and then we just tested to that.
So were you testing in thousands of instances against these services at a given time, or is it in the hundreds kind of a range?
Well, so the QA testing was done pretty much one user at a time, and then the load testing followed that. So those were scripting, I think, about 1,000 virtual users against the service.
So as you were going through that testing cycle, was there anything architecturally that you identified that where you're like, gosh, whoa, this is way too chatty, this is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because there were a lot of services underneath here that existed for other purposes that we kind of rolled up into this application. So there were definitely places where there might have been legacy systems or services where the performance wasn't what we wanted. So I think that the motto was generally cache often, cache early. So we have a number of places where we're caching either in a database or in memory as we move up the stack. As we roll the data together, we cache that information to make it more responsive.
Excellent. So it was talked about that most of this was coded in VB. Was there any C# done in this, or is this?
There wasn't.
Okay.
So VB is the internal standard for development, so it's all built in VB.NET. The front end, I think, is built in C#, but all the service stack is in VB.NET.
I'm sure the VB developers will be excited to hear that.
I'm
I know
sure they'll be very excited about that.
Being an old VB guy, I know sometimes that they, what do you mean VB? It's only C#.
You can build real
applications. Exactly. So I think this gives them great hope that we can. Is there any other interesting architectural artifacts that you've discovered while building this? Things that you would do differently, or things that you would tell people about, watch out for these kinds of situations?
Not off the top of my head.
Not off the top of your head. Well, thank you, sir.
No problem. Thanks.
Yep.